Hello again, and welcome to another installment of Fantastic Five, the show where we give you a list that is 100% correct, and you tell us what we forgot in the comments. This week, we're looking at 5 of the best video games based on comics. Comic characters have been making the leap from the printed page to other forms of popular media for pretty much as long as there have been other forms of popular media for them to leap to. But it wasn't until video games came around that fans were able to really feel like they were their favorite superheroes. Well, unless they wanted to use their imaginations, but who wants to do that? Number 5, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. As far as I'm concerned, pretty much all of the Capcom Marvel fighting games are great and worthy of a spot on this list. And of all the games on this list, this one is my personal favorite. But since people would yell at me even more than normal in the comments if the whole list was just those games, and then the X-Men side-scroller, I'm gonna try and be a little more impartial. Having said all of that, the Marvel vs. Capcom series is still amazing. The first game is great, but its sequel basically improved on the original by keeping the gameplay fast, frenetic, and most importantly, fun, while expanding the roster of both universes. Capcom's signature takes on the character designs can't be beat, and every match is a treat to watch because of it. And yes, I know there was a more recent third edition to the series, but MVC2 is better. Number 4, Injustice: Gods Among Us. Speaking of how impartial I can be, up next is Injustice: Gods Among Us. I've always preferred DC to Marvel, but I've also always liked Street Fighter more than Mortal Kombat, so it was a little disappointing when DC's answer to the Marvel vs. Capcom series, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, was announced. Talk about two worlds that really don't feel like they belong together. The game was fine if you like overly dark and violent fighting games with decent controls, but it was nothing to get excited about. I like good guys to be good guys, so you can imagine how ready I was to hate a follow-up set to be about evil versions of my favorite heroes taking over the world. But the game actually had more going on than just everyone is bad in fights. The game's story had a lot more depth than the marketing suggested, and the controls and special attacks showcased what makes these characters so fun. The final feat that earned Injustice a spot on this list, though, is the surprising fact that the game then inspired a pretty great comic based on its continuity. Number 3, SpiderMan 2. Sequels that outshine their predecessors are going to be a recurring theme on this list. And Spider-Man 2 is an all-time great example. It's also one of the rare blockbuster movie tie-in video games that's actually good. The plot is loosely based on the 2004 film, but the game added more Marvel characters for Spidey to deal with, like Black Cat, Mysterio, and the Rhino. And while that's neat, it's really just the icing on the cake, or the webbing on the crook, because what really makes this game great is the way it put you in Spider-Man spandex in a way no other game had. Thanks to new technological advances, not only were you able to swing around Spider-Man's New York in fun and exhilarating ways that were previously impossible, but you were seriously able to swing around Spider-Man's New York. I mean, like, all around it. You want to go climb up and down every building in Manhattan? Knock yourself out. Spider-Man 2 gave you the whole city to play around in and said, "You're Spider-Man. Go do whatever you Spider can." Number 2, The Walking Dead Season 1. 80 Game of the Year awards don't lie. Released by Telltale Games in 2012 as 5 individual episodes, the video game version of The Walking Dead succeeds by putting you in the middle of the zombie apocalypse in a way that neither the wildly successful comic nor television series can. Because the game introduces you to characters and then says, okay, what happens to these people is your problem now. And then the choices you make directly affect the story, sometimes with unexpected and possibly terrible consequences. Not that other games haven't utilized this type of gameplay before, but The Walking Dead managed to make the tension and looming dread of that world so palpable, you can practically feel yourself starting to sweat in the Georgia heat. And number 1, Batman: Arkham Knight. You had to know that one of the Batman Arkham games was going to be in the top spot, right? Batman has probably had the best video game track record of any comic character, but the Arkham series finally did something that so many Bat fans had been waiting their whole lives for, to feel like they really were Batman. The sneaking around, the gadgets, the fighting, the dropping down from above and scaring the living bejesus out of a bad guy, it all felt like what we dreamed being Batman would feel like. Throw in the fact that Batman the Animated Series cast members Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill returned to voice Batman and Joker respectively, and it also sounded like many fans say it's supposed to. All of the Arkham games are great, but Arkham Knight wins out because it has everything good about the other entries in the series, plus, you finally get to drive the Batmobile. Let us know what you think of our choices and which of your favorite comic-inspired games we left out in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode of Fantastic Fives. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Comics Alliance for more comic facts, and check out comicsalliance.com for more comic awesomeness.